eat when she wants to be able to do pull-ups.
I've had that conversation with clients where it's like, okay, well, you want to get better at running, come train with me, but you're going to need to lose weight.
Yeah.
You're a little bit heavy. And then you just explain it to them. It's like, hey, 1 kilo is 3 kilos of of stress every time you stride or land.
It's huge, yeah.
I do that with clients with double unders. It's like, I want to get better at double unders. Well, the fastest way for you to get better is to train and practice, and we'll put some protocols and stuff in place. I was like, we'll lose weight. I was like, then you'll be able to tolerate more volume.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, I'm not saying it to offend you. Like, you just asked me for the answer, and that's part of the answer. And I was like, I'm not saying like, I'm saying lose 2 kilos.
Make a huge difference.
Yeah, your knees aren't going to hurt as much, and you can come in and you can do your 30 minutes of skill work every day. Whereas where those extra 2 kilos, you're only getting 2 touches because it's taking you 3 days to recover.
Makes a huge difference. Hey, I noticed it when I was like 5 kilos lighter, just like how easy it was for me to do like pull-ups and stuff. And then you just a couple of kilos, it makes all the world of difference with some exercises.
It's crazy how much it helps. That's your mic.
I need to have it like pretty close.
Yeah.
Nice little setup, hey?
This one's playing up a bit. I've got the cameraman set up on you.
Oh, okay.
They're not here to listen.
Make sure I'm not picking my nose or anything.
Just flick it at them.
Just don't use that bit for your reels.
You'd be surprised, stuff like that where it's like you seem normal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, it's like, and that's why I use a lot of humor in my own social media, because it's like people relate to it. And I like it.
Yeah, okay. So we're on a recording. We'll just have a little bit of an easy chat into it while we pull everything up. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I do it with some clients as well. Like sometimes I can just be a little bit too direct, but I'm like, all right, your dog's fat. What do you do? It's like, do you give it lemon water or do you fucking just go, hey, let's walk it a little bit more and feed it a little bit less? I was like, it's not.
Let the penny drop.
Yeah, it's
in their own mind.
It's not rocket science.
Yes.
I was like, the things the solutions you're looking for that that golden bullet. It's like, no, that's not what needs to happen, right?
Yeah. It's funny, like reading through the questions when you sent them to me, literally how I approach things is literally that, like really simplifying things, because people, they're looking for a magic potion, magic pill, fast track. And it's like we overcomplicate it so much.
They want an excuse and something that they can attach it to where it removes responsibility. So we're all high-wired to it, where it's like, okay, well, I don't have to take responsibility for that thing going wrong. But then we all want to take responsibility for what goes right. So it's like we all want recognition, but none of us want to take responsibility for what goes wrong, which they go hand in hand.
Yeah, totally.
Like even for like myself in business, it's like I have to not take on like that recognition. For me, it has to be like I've got to give it to Tyler, I've got to give it to Renee, because if I don't, then they're not going to want to do what they do. Like incentives aren't going to be there. So I have to be willing to be like, even if I did the work, be like, hey, the recognition goes to these guys. Try and operate a little bit more in the background. But it's very interesting observing, like everyone's like, oh, I want you to celebrate my PBs, or I want you to do this one, and it's like, yeah, that's great. I just want you to be disciplined and addicted to the process. But then they don't want to take responsibility when I'm like, but you haven't come for 3 weeks. It's like, yeah, but well, I'm not I'm not going to fucking celebrate your PBs unless you can show me that you have the humility to accept the fact that you haven't done something. Like if you said to me like, yep, look, I haven't been disciplined. Like I'm working on it. I'm gonna try and do better. Perfect. You got my respect. Like I'll celebrate with you. But it's hard to celebrate with someone when they're not gonna take responsibility for their own choices.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Well, so it empowers them, doesn't it? Like they realize it themselves. Like they admit it. I haven't been consistent. Haven't been coming. They've got to realize it. Otherwise, they're not going to change, are they? Yeah.
Can you reach that ball?
I can try.
Alright.
Ta-da.
Beautiful. Well, we are going to kick off episode 49 of Unbound and Unplugged, and today Nyssa, you're going to join us and give us a nice little deep dive into some nutrition. Now, nutrition is something that we're seeing everywhere at the moment. There's a lot of push on social media. There's a lot of push in terms of trends. It just seems to be a trending topic, I suppose. You're a little bit more into the field. For us, we get to dabble a little bit, but our scope of work is very broad. So we're just giving people generalized information. For yourself, it's a lot more in-depth. I would like to start it off by getting the listeners to kind of know a little bit more about yourself. All right, so a little bit of a background into what you do, what you specialize in, and what got you into nutrition coaching in the first place.
In the first place, yes. Well, thanks for having me here. What got me into nutrition in the first place was, I guess I've been in health and fitness since I was like 16. Just naturally fell into that field. And it wasn't until my own health started to really deteriorate that I started realizing that a lot of like the fads and the trends out there are really like they're working against our health and against our physiology. So I had some pretty like full-on health stuff going on for me, and I was still quite really young. So I just started diving into like the basics of nutrition and like looking at what works and what doesn't work, and it naturally leads you down a deeper path. I went to university, started to study that, but the pivotal moment was whilst being at university, some of the stuff they teach you really goes against our physiology as well. So I was kind of stuck in a bit of a rock and a hard place there, because I wanted the qualification, but I was following all this other information by a couple of really well-known biologists and doctors bringing out this information. So I kind of went down both paths. Led me to here.
A little bit of telling you what to know rather than teaching you how these things kind of happen, or like understanding the mechanisms and being able to make your own decision. It is very big, and we see it in our industry all the time. Like as technology gets better, we have all these frameworks that we're taught, and we have to be open-minded. If we're not open-minded, we're not going to be a good coach, because it's disproven all the time. So if we're sitting there and we're doing factual information, we're like, hey, you have to eat 30 grams of protein and this, and then it's like, well, that's not true. I mean, a classic one is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy has to be between 8 to 12 reps. It's a lot of shit. You can do hypertrophy with any rep range. It's not the rep range that determines the hypertrophy. It's the work that you put in, or the stress that you create. And for so long it was like that. And then knee over toe, another example. You can't squat with knees over toes. They're just things that people latch onto, and then they become normalized by people in positions of influence, but then they take no responsibility. So my pushback on it is, like, what I would like to see with social media is retractions. So if you go and you put out these objective statements, I have nothing against that. But when you're wrong, just show some humility and just be like, hey guys, I was wrong. Like, looks like this evidence is coming out now, all right, that disproves what I used to believe, all right, and you will gain so much more respect. People, they don't need you to be right all the time. They just need you to be transparent.
Yeah, that's 100%. Even in my journey of like learning about different supplements and nutritional protocols, you learn more. Obviously, like, I see myself not as a guru, but more of a student, and never better than anyone else. Maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead, because I've been researching and studying for so long. But there's things, even just recently, like things that I've retracted. Go, wow, okay, maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe a few people that I've suggested this for actually isn't really beneficial for them. And you're right. I think that's a really important thing that more of us should be embodying is being open to be wrong and honest about that.
And inherently, that's why you stay ahead. You stay ahead because you don't perceive that you're ahead or you're the best. You're seeking to keep learning. You're seeking to keep improving. As soon as you're on top, there's a reason why when you're on top of the mountain, you can lose it. Like, you're talking about you have the most resources. So when someone gets to the top, they have the most money, they have the best view, they've been through all of it, but yet they still lose it. And a lot of it is because of exactly that. Like, they become complacent or they become comfortable, and that's not where you ever want to be. Otherwise, it's just not going to last.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of what you went through, are you comfortable sharing a little bit more information for your users?
Yeah, totally. Where do you want to go?
You spoke about some health stuff that you went through. Do you mind sharing what that was?
Yeah, let's go for like the stuff that I think a lot of people probably relate to. In my bodybuilding days, so I was a competitive bodybuilder, if you want to call it a sport. Maybe not. I laugh because I don't think much of that place anymore. But I was pretty high up, nationally sponsored by supplement companies and clothing companies, and I started to not be able to digest foods. I would eat and then feel very nauseous and sick and vomit. And there was times where I was on the side of the road vomiting. I used to literally shit my pants after every meal. You could even ask my partner Kristen of some lovely stories.
Loss of bowel control, or was it?
No,
more...
not bowel control, just more like food just going straight through me. Yeah, and it was like, oh, holy shit! I'm driving and I really gotta get to the toilet right now. And
this is not normal.
And not normal. Yes. So I was right in the middle of my university studies at this point in time, and it was at the height of my vegan days. So I used to call myself a vegan coach and a fasting guru. They were literally the names I gave myself. And
the buzzwords, that would have got a lot of clients.
I did, yeah. I was very successful. Very, very successful. And I laugh not because of the amount of people that I influenced and that I feel regretful for that. And there's even people I've reached out to and apologized. Like, I'm sorry, I was not the coach that I am now. I've apologized. But I laugh because of what I put myself through.
Yeah.
So they were just a couple of the things that I experienced. I also had some miscarriages. I started to lose my period. So this was in my 30s. Women shouldn't lose their period in their 30s. I had very painful ovulation. So literally on the middle of my cycle, when I was ovulating, I would be fatigued. I couldn't move. I couldn't come to the gym. So for a woman, they're pretty big things. They're pretty big setbacks. And if someone comes to me now, I take that very seriously. And at the time, I didn't think it was very serious until I started to really open myself up to going, okay, well, let's just look into this. So they were probably the pivotal turning points for me, were the things that were going on. There's more, like I had terrible joint pain, I had massive big implants, like that's the superficial side. They were causing a lot of neurological and immune system dysregulation as well. So I've had those out. I had anxiety, other mental health problems going on as well, skin issues, weight gain. So lots of things that I'm sure a lot of women can probably connect with and resonate.
At least something that you've said that people can relate.
Yes.
And it's very common because we know plenty of people in the bodybuilding industry, and they start out and then they end up getting fake boobs and they're chasing this image for what? Like, yeah, it ends up, we need to be careful with what we normalize. So like we say normal and we use that term, but anything can be normalized. And like you said, it's just making sure that they're positive things.
Yes.
So all these, like that's probably normalized in the bodybuilding industry, where it's like, hey, that just is what it is. Like you're gonna go through this because you are stressing your body this way.
Yeah.
And then you've got the social side of things where people are looking up to that as in like, hey, that's what fitness and health looks like without the context. And the context is exactly what you're talking about.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I think back to the person I was, and I used to do these photo shoots and I'd have these raunchy outfits and I would blast them all over the internet, and no disrespect to anyone who wants to do that, but for me, I was doing it for the attention, and I can openly admit that right now.
About it. It's one thing I say to these guys, like they'll joke to me and they'll be like, when I would be posting stuff and things, and they'd be like, oh, like a thirst trap or this, I'm like, yeah, I wanted some attention.
Yeah.
Like, but at least I'm not lying to myself. As where the worst place to operate is when you are lying to yourself. And you see people all the time. They're like, no, it wasn't that. Like, I'm not doing it for that. I just like posting because then my friends and family see it. Well, you can just send it to them.
Yes.
Like, there's another reason why you're posting. Like, and the feedback loop is the attention from other people, which you just need to be honest about. And that way, at least you know how to deal with things if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling anxious. Where when you lie to yourself, you don't know where to go from there.
You just live in denial. That's exactly where I was. Very, very much in denial back in those days.
Was it more of like a mindset switch that made you pivot, or was there like a specific moment that you remember where it was like, nah, this is done? Like stress on a relationship, maybe something happened?
It was probably a combination over a few years. So I have a background of abusive relationships, so 3 in a row, and the very last one was pretty horrific for me. Like I feared for my life, I feared for my son's life, was worried about my car being tampered with, like I'd be really, really scared. So it was that moment that I'm like, how does a nice person end up in situations like this? It's like, well, you got to take responsibility for that. So that led me down the path of really looking at who I was and who I was being, but also like the shit that I was carrying from my childhood and things like that. So that was the mindset shift, starting to really take responsibility for that. Like, yeah, that person's horrible. They did some horrible things. They're mentally, physically, emotionally, financially abusive. But what part of me allowed that?
Yeah, and what attracted that?
What attracted that? Yes.
So if you definitely, and it's a hard conversation to have because again, you're taking responsibility for poor outcomes, but it's the only thing that serves you because you can't control the other person.
100%.
You can only control yourself. So if you are blaming the other person, nothing changes. There's nothing you can do, there's no actions you can take. As if you think about, hey, like, I'm not good at back squats because, not because back squats are shit, but just because I need to do something about my back squats. Like, at least then you have a choice. And it's not an ideal situation, but you manage to go through that hard period, do some self-reflection, work out what you actually wanted and what you valued, and make those slow pivots and changes.
Yep,
and where you are now, do you regret any of that?
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I don't like it, and it was horrible, and what my friends and family had to go through, witnessing me being homeless multiple times, and really in a place of distress, and what my son went through. But I don't regret it because it has made me the person I am, and I obviously needed to journey through that to get to where I am. And I find I'm just a much stronger, more resilient, very self-empowered person, and just take responsibility for all the shit going on in my life.
And you sound more open-minded too.
Very.
Where you realise things change and things move. That's the only thing that's guaranteed in life is things are going to change. So you need to be okay at dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's perfect. Well, it's a nice little deep dive into the background of it itself. I'm sure the listeners can relate. That'll lead us into kind of segment 2. So segment 2, I suppose, industry trends is a big one. We just touched on a little bit of the bodybuilding side of things. So you would have seen plenty of trends there. I know from an outsider looking in, there's a lot of things that we see as toxic. Then there's a lot of things that we see as not toxic. And it's just being able to filter that, I think, is big. I'm big on context. I don't like when context removed because if you zoom out, a lot of time the intent is right, but the overall effect can be negative. And I'm big on overall. So it's like, okay, if the overall or the net is negative, then it's not worth it. As if the net is positive, then perfect. Something for me that I use as an example is we have a lot of dietitians and that coming out now who are specializing in the sporting sector, and they're pushing a lot of these like simple sugars where it's like, hey, have lollies before you train, have this before you train for athletes and stuff like that. And that's great. But you look at the audiences, 30, 40,000, maybe 250,000 people. It's not 250,000 athletes following you, all right? There's probably 100, all right? And of that 100, yes, that works for them. They're consuming 3,500, 4,500 calories a day. But the general population who have a negative, or let's not say negative, let's just say a behavior that's not leading them to the outcome that they want. Their outcome is, I want to lose weight, I want to feel better, whatever it might be. Now they hear this and they get to attach to it, and they're like, sweet, I'm justified in my behavior because the athletes do it, but you've removed all context. So yes, it is good for the athlete to have those simple sugars and have those things before they train, but they're not trading off the other stuff. They're still having their fruit, they're still having their other foods, like they're still getting their minimum requirements. Someone who's on 1,700 calories a day because they have a sedentary job, coming in and now filling 350 to 400 calories with snakes before they train, there's a trade-off and there's a cost. And that's what worries me. When you zoom out and you look at the overall picture, because we see people coming day in, day out, and like, just because they're seeing it on Instagram or they're seeing it on this, and it's okay. And I'm like, I'm a little bit torn where I'm like, is it actually worth putting that out there? Because in my eyes, when you zoom out, it's having a very negative effect because of behavior, but we have to consider behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I mean, you're a little bit more heavily involved. That's just an outside opinion. What are your thoughts on things like that?
I think this is a really great topic, and you can apply this to any context. It's not just about food and lollies before you train. It can be anything, and I'm exactly like you. Zoom out and look at the bigger picture, and a lot of people don't. And people on Instagram, TikTok, wherever they are, posting these things, a lot of it's clickbait, a lot of it's just for content. So it's like, what's trending right now? We've all got to do it, we've all got to jump on it, and we've all got to produce this content. And you're right, for the most part, most of the people following that are people that maybe are not too self-aware, that have got a lot of shit going on, that don't have all the tools and the know-how to put things in place to ensure they're working towards their goals. And this is where a really great coach, nutritionist, dietitian, whatever, naturopath comes in, because they can help them understand that. And that's what I do with a lot of my clients. It's not just do this, 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 and this. I want you to do this because. Do you understand why? Okay, now we move on. And so circling back to the lollies before training, I think getting in some simple sugars before training can be really great, but what's even better is fueling yourself throughout the whole day much better. So then you're gonna have a better sleep, and you're gonna wake up in a better state. And setting yourself up so that your body's already out of a stress state. Because someone could be coming in here after a sedentary day, not eating, balancing blood sugars, haven't eaten for 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, let's get in 300 calories of lollies. It's gonna do them jack shit. It's gonna do them absolutely jack shit.
It's not the lowest hanging fruit.
No.
and yeah, that's my worry. Like, nothing against people putting out that content. I get it. You're just trying to make money. Like, your feedback loop is, oh sweet, this is getting shared. This is getting, but understand why it's getting shared. And understand why you got into it in the first place. Like, we talk about it here, if we get 10 clients, can you help 10 clients? Like, because you're not going to share your bad reviews. So it creates a fake picture where it's like, oh, you have a 100% success rate. We know that's not true. Like, we know that every client you work with is not going to get the result. And why? Right? And once you can answer the why, your product gets better because you start to help more people. But you're not going to do that by having a cookie cutter approach where it's like one fits all. Yet the cookie cutter approach is what people want.
Yeah, well, it's trends, and like people you watch, most of the influencers, they all start talking the same and like doing the same signals.
They're copying each other.
But people consuming that, they're like, oh, I like this because that person's going, or they like do these funny little facial movements or say particular words, and so the consumers are naturally just all gravitating towards that until perhaps somebody stands out and maybe gets them to think in a different context. But most people, they don't change until something negatively happens to them, something, or the pain of suffering where they currently are outweighs what they want, so they need to change.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the takeaway for the listeners, like, anyone who's talking in objective and absolutes, they're probably not a critical thinker. Like, they are just doing it to get clickbait and do that. So it's probably not the best person for you to be working with, because it like we said, it's not that simple and it's very subjective. So if they are talking in those absolutes, there's a reason, and the reason is not to help people, the reason is to help themselves, whether they've accepted it or not, and it's helping themselves by growing their business or growing their influence, whatever it might be. Now, there are some other industry trends. Big one is obviously intermittent fasting. That's already on its way down. Like, I've noticed there's been a lot of pushback on intermittent fasting. What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? Before it's kind of gone?
Well, I love that it's on the outward trend. My experience with intermittent fasting, both personally but professionally with clients, is that it just destroys someone's metabolism. So when you look at when you are not consuming food, you're raising your stress hormones. And the number one cause at a root level of pretty much any issue, even performance, is stress. So if we can zoom out and look at overall how can we reduce our stress, intermittent fasting is definitely not going to be helping you there. I can go quite deep into like all the physiological processes and how it can be detrimental to females' hormones, to female performance. Even the studies on intermittent fasting, there's not been a single study that's been done on females and intermittent fasting. So like for females, and that's probably the majority of the audience that take up intermittent fasting. I'm sure a lot of men do, but predominantly women. The effect is great on them, on their hormones. So you'll start really noticing digestive issues, hormonal issues, cyclic issues, mental health issues, and it doesn't just stop there. Like, that creates a stress response that then will cascade for years and years and years. So like, I'm not a fan of intermittent fasting. I do not encourage it, and I'll be the first person to put my hand up to just be like, why are you doing that? Do you understand? Like, for most people, they want to do it for fat loss.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's the rules. Like, it's the rules where it's like, what I've seen with clients, oh, okay, well, like, I need up sick.
Yes.
Well, that's when you were eating the chips when you were watching TV. So just stop eating the chips.
Yes.
And it's like, and for me, when all this stuff came out, it was like, okay, well, most of the studies are done in mice.
Yes.
So there's no human randomized control trials. And then they started to come out, but even then were very questionable. And then the other side of it is like, well, based on your logic, when we sleep, we're doing it anyway. So it's like, why did we need to go and just like attach to this specific thing as if it's working? It's like, technically, your timing between meals is intermittent fasting, and when you sleep is a form of intermittent fasting. And it's like, it's just got taken away from other cultures, but they weren't doing it for that. Like, they were doing it for the discipline side of things.
And then there's the religious context and all
Yeah.
of that. But same thing, like they look at all the other constituents and they are optimizing their health and supporting their health, and then they're not doing it for performance or fat loss or, you know, some other crazy thing that somebody else is saying on social media. I think a lot of the times is we'll package something and we'll rebrand it and we'll market it to make it sound like it's this be all and end all pill that people are chasing, when really, like you said, just don't eat the packet of chips, or, you know, eat a little less food if fat loss is what you're after.
Yeah. What do you, if I said to you, we're going to make you fat, what would you do?
Eat more food.
Yeah, so it's
Sit
like,
around
you
all
want to
day.
lose weight, then just do the opposite.
Absolutely.
And the main reason, and our role, especially with myself, it's more coaching, and for yourself, it's more the nutrition side of things, is accountability.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why business people have business coaches. Like, the accountability is the thing that you're going for, and then so people can guide you. But yeah, following these fads and trends is not going to do shit.
Yeah.
The other thing is the plant-based stuff. So you spoke a little bit about being vegan for a while. Plant-based is still pretty big. Like, you're still seeing supplement companies pop up with all these plant-based things. You're seeing still a lot of push. People just latch on to something. You know, it worked for me, it's anecdotal, it worked for everyone, and then they try to monetize it and sell it. And that's something that people need to remember, is like, a lot of these guys that are pushing it out there, like, social media it's a platform to sell. Like, that's what people are doing. So it's a little bit diluted, where for most people it's not necessarily a platform to help people. That's just how they package it. But at the end of the day, like we said, they don't zoom out and they don't look at the full picture. What's your opinion on plant-based diets? They have their place.
I don't like them. I think for humans and human performance, not even in the gym, but just in general, like, let's look at a woman. If she was plant-based, she's going to have a lot less stress resilience. There's particular nutrients you just cannot get on a plant-based diet. Even supplemental, they are in a synthetic form. They're going to have the way that they regulate inside of your body, it's going to create dysfunction. And yes, you can get your whole amino acid profile from different protein sources in a plant-based diet, but you're not going to get particular bioavailable nutrients from those plant-based protein sources. And when you're lacking in those, things go to shit. So there's particular things like copper and retinol, you just will not get enough, and not in its bioavailable form. And you just cannot optimize a human's performance, their metabolism, their vitality on a plant-based diet. I can go a little bit further if you'd like me to.
Dive into it.
Let's dive.
I love this stuff, but for the listeners, they just want to know good, bad.
Well, let's look at something easy for a lot of listeners, because I'm sure everybody's, you know, probably not as in-depth into research and things like that like yourself. But when you look at predominantly look at what plant-based diet people eat, what I ate when I was vegan, is hard to digest foods. So things like nuts, seeds, legumes, those things are abrasive on the gut, and those are also the source where they would get most of their protein. There's particular inhibitors in those that will actually minimize the amount of protein they're getting in. So they're not only minimizing the amount of protein they're getting in, they're also creating abrasion on their gut. And then when you start to ruin the integrity of your gut permeability and mess around with the balance of your gut microbiome, there's shit that just cascades from there. And that's exactly the shitting my pants time in my life. It's exactly what I did. It was from being vegan for 2 years. And so the foods alone are just fundamentally are not good for us on a bulk level, like amounts, like having so much.
There's always a trade-off.
A trade-off, absolutely.
It's not purely positive.
Yeah.
And then it's way up to positive, negative, and realize, okay, well, maybe this isn't something that I do forever.
Yeah. For the first year, man, I had the clearest skin. I lost 10 kilos. Like, I thought I was the duck's nuts. I had my massive big implants. I was 10 kilos lighter than my normal weight, which is smaller than what I am now. My skin was glowing. I was living off stress hormones because I was intermittent fasting. I thought life was great until it wasn't.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing, eh? It's like your baseline gets reset, so you only know what you know, and you only know what you're exposed to. So yeah, while you're in it, you don't know. Like, I always used to think I was fit, and I was like, I eat pretty well, like, I'm fine. And then it wasn't until I was like, all right, I'm gonna play around and dial things in. And I was like, oh shit. Like I was in gear 4, there's a gear 5. And then it's like when you're in gear 5 and you tweak and you feel like, oh shit, there's a gear 6. But you have no idea of these things until you actually make a little bit of change. And it's like while you're in it, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be aware of these things. So I need to try and pay attention to people who've maybe been through it before. And try and, like, it's a definition of intelligence. If you have the ability to learn from other people's mistakes, you're going to be way further ahead in life than those who have to make the mistake themselves before they even learn from it. Or even worse, they're going to make the mistake twice.
Yeah, so me 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. It's like, oh shit, there goes all my time. But that's cool. The other thing, you spoke a little bit about gut microbiome. It's becoming a lot more available to test this. So we are seeing this as an uptrend. So intermittent fasting, plant-based, on the downtrend if you ask me, not seeing it as much. But we are seeing the accessibility side of microbiome testing go up because it's a lot cheaper now. So as it becomes cheaper, we get access to it. Good thing, bad thing, recommend people to do it. How often do you get clients to do it?
I think it's a good question. It can be a good thing. However, I think we are in a state of information overload.
Fully agree.
Yeah. So a lot of people, like, let's say a client comes to me and they've got all these gut issues, hormonal issues, and they're like, I think I want to do a GI mapping, I want to do a stool test, I want to get a Dutch test, I want to get a HTMA. They're all really great tests. They can give some really great information. However, this client is in the worst state right now. So all of your markers are going to be up against reference ranges against people that are either healthy, unhealthy, or somewhere in between. I say to clients, let's look at those tests, but first, let's look at all the basics in your life that you're doing. Like, what's your stress like? What's your eating like? What's your sleep like? Like, what are your symptoms? What is your body telling you? So if you can spend a good 2 to 3 months working on those, then if you want to, if you still got symptoms, go get your tests done. All for it. I can guarantee you that
there is, what you're talking about there, and it's something that we talk about here, there is an issue where if you have to go seek outside information to get context, you're probably missing the context that you're getting already. Like your body is amazing, and the signals it's giving you is feedback you need, but we're not listening to it.
100%.
And that's where I'm like, these watches, everything that's coming out, like we're in a world of sales. And you need to separate yourself from that and remember, people did the job we do now without technology, without computers, without all these things that we have, and half the time they did a better job than us.
I was about to say that, and they did a fucking great job.
So it's like, we don't need these things, and we do need to just go, okay, well we talk about information overload. People are anxious. Why are people anxious? Because there's so much shit going on and they don't know which one to pick. Well, then simplify it. Like, you're anxious because there's a lot going on and you don't know what. There's all these different options you can take and you don't know which one to take. Then get rid of all the technology and simplify things and you won't feel anxious.
100% agree. You said
meal prep, tracking, we do it with clients all the time. I'm like, just track one day. Like one day. Just call, I'm like, it's calibration day. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, your perception of reality needs to match reality. I was like, so if you say to me, I'm consuming 3,000 calories, I was like, track a day. Let's see if you're accurate. And then I was like, I do it once a month. And I'm in the industry. And the reason I do it is my perception of portion sizes will fluctuate. So it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is 250 grams of carbs. And then 3 weeks later, all of a sudden I've snuck an extra 50 grams in and I'm like, oh shit, bring it back, like putting in a little bit more out of post. So like I just use them as calibration days. I don't need to track every day, and I try and say to clients, like, just start there.
I think that's really good, simplifying it and giving them a baseline of where they're at, because most people are overeating or under-eating, the ones that starve themselves, but people that are like, oh, why am I putting on weight? It's like, you're probably overeating. It's pretty easy.
They're reporting poorly.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, I'm not overeating, I barely eat. It's like, I can't even remember what I had for food for like today. And it's like, okay, well, let's run through what you had today. Oh, never mind, I had Macca's. Oh shit, I had KFC too. It's like, oh, actually never mind, I had 6 meals.
Yes.
But their memory recall is just so poor.
Data is so important, and I'm not talking about like all this scientific data, like with, you know, all that technology. I'm talking data from your body, like feedback. I was talking to a client the other day, you know who this client is, and she was feeling like really chunky and fluidy, and like she was feeling thick. And I was like, okay, that's all right. Like, you've been really good with your food, but you were feeling really great last week. What's changed this week? I'm like, what did you do on the weekend? Okay, what time of the month is it? And just asking those two things, she was able to say, oh, okay, so perhaps I just, you know, overdid it a little bit on the weekend and my body's holding a bit of water. How do you feel now? And like, that was yesterday, so Wednesday. She's like, I feel amazing, I feel great. Like, there you go, it's data. You get to take this away with you and remember that. Because a lot of women particularly, but I'm sure men do as well, is they'll base their perception or their belief or their, you know, ultimate decision of their emotions. I'm feeling really fat and flabby today. It's like, well, that's all right. Like, what's the last few days been like? You're not fat and flabby, you look freaking amazing and your health's better than it's been in a long time. And I don't think you're putting on fat, but let's keep an eye on that. But let's really look at the bigger picture.
And you also are comparing yourself to yesterday. Just one of the hardest things where it's like, because we're in it, our, like, what we have to compare to is only what we recently seen. So when I get up in the morning, I see myself in the mirror, that's my perception. So I'm comparing myself back to yesterday. It's very hard for me to be like imagine when you haven't seen someone for a month. Like, you're like, holy shit, you look amazing. We don't get that. And it's why we have to take photos and we look back a month and we go, oh, okay, this puts it in perspective for us. And it's interesting because it's, like you said, like those negative emotions, if those actions that follow those emotions are negative or self-sabotage, then you can very much undo everything you've done because of a fake reality that you've created, which is where most people see it.
Yeah. And they have a coping response or a stress response to those negative emotions. I see it with so many of my clients. Like, they'll be 6 weeks in, they'll be doing amazing, but they'll have 1 week that's off, and it's just, it sets them back because they're like, I'm fat, I'm not making progress. It's like, well, hang on.
They give up.
They give up, yeah.
No, beautiful. The very interesting. The other side of things is there's a growing interest in the adaptogen and their role in managing stress and hormone health. Now, this is a topic that you would love diving into.
Yes.
Could you share some of your insights on how these might benefit?
Well, firstly, let's look at adaptogens. For the most part, they are ancient remedies that have been repackaged and rebranded and marketed as these great things that we can take today. That's not necessarily a negative thing, but like, that's just looking at what they are.
What is an adaptogen?
Something to help you with like a stress response, to help with your nervous system, to help you with your performance. So they could be a herb, a root,
I was going to say,
mushroom.
natural foods, can they be tablets, synthetic drugs?
I guess you could have a synthetic drug. It's going to help your body to adapt.
Yeah.
So performance enhancement drugs. For the most part on the market, your adaptogens are herbs, roots, mushrooms. But then you've got your other side, which I guess in all sports they're not illegal, but some could be, like in particular sports. And I think we look at them overall, whether they're synthetic, whether they're a herb, a mushroom, they're only going to help you if you're already in an optimized state. Like, let's look at one end of the scale. If someone wants to take steroids, if you're not already optimizing everything, you're not going to get the most out of those steroids. Let's look at on like a herbal side, you've got ashwagandha or ginseng. Those have been around for like years and years. They're ancient, but same thing. If you take something to help you with your stress response because you're so fucking stressed or you can't sleep. Sorry if I'm swearing.
No, swear.
Okay, yeah.
Listeners love it.
Okay. Potty mouth here. If you're taking something to help you with your sleep or your stress, but you're not looking at what's causing it, like zooming out, then you're wasting your money. So I'm all for adaptogens. I mean, I don't take anything synthetic or performance enhancing in that particular sense, but I'm all for that if somebody wants to. But first, optimize like all the basics. Look at the big picture, then you get the most out of them. And same with something like ashwagandha or some mushrooms or microdosing things. Like, look at everything else first. Don't look at them as like a pill or a quick fix.
We tend to be very wasteful with our behaviours.
Yes.
I mean, with everything.
Yes.
And that's just overflowing into that side of things where it's like, we're trying to optimize, but for what? We haven't optimized the lowest hanging fruit. Like the big picture stuff we haven't fixed. Mm-hmm. So there's no point in going and doing these little things because you're just undoing it with everything else. Mm-hmm. It's still if you were to give a recommendation for something, what would it be?
I would probably say something that's going to help with calming the nervous system. So you've got your like different mushrooms, lion's mane, even like chamomile, licorice root. Some of like those things are not only helpful for the nervous system and the stress response, but also detoxification. So there's a multitude of benefits. However, everybody's very different. Everyone's bioidentically individual based on where they are in their journey in their life. So I don't think there's any one particular thing that I would suggest, because anyone could go out and go, well, I'm going to buy that, when it might not be suitable for them.
Yeah, and I think, me personally, just listening and just thinking back to like some of my clients and even some things that I have issues with, the chamomile tea and something that helps bring you back to reality and be present and slow down, I think is definitely some way to go. Yeah. These things where we're trying to optimize muscle growth or we're trying to optimize recovery and things like that, like our mind is a big driver for a lot of our adaptation, like whether we get good quality sleep, how we deal with things. Like I'm not sure if you've seen some of the stuff from, so they've done a few studies where like if you take people that watch more than 90 minutes of like a traumatic event on TV and people are actually at the traumatic event, so if we say like the Twin Towers for example, the stress response is greater in the ones that consume more than 90 minutes of movie. Of content. Yeah. So those that are exposing themselves to all the content, like they may as well have been there.
Yeah.
And gone through that traumatic event. So it just goes to show how much our mind does play a role. I'm playing with a client at the moment where there was another study I was reading, and for me, like, it's cool, like I get to kind of tweak things and try different things in real time. She's struggling mentally with a lot of things in terms of like physical development, all right? So just in terms of like, hey, this is like a bottleneck for me. So we're doing all the right things, she's very consistent, she's very disciplined. We just don't know the time domain. Like we just can't put a number and be like, hey, 6 weeks, it's there. We don't know that. But what we do know is we can do the action as the goal. So 3 days a week we're doing this. Now something I'm playing with her is visualization. So when I talk to her about visualizing, she's visualizing failing. And I was like, that has to change.
Yes.
Like your visualization is, let's say someone wants to learn a toaster bar. When you dream, you're not dreaming about missing the toaster bar. You're hitting the toaster bar.
Yes.
When you visualize, you're visualizing smooth, strong toaster bar. And it all came from, there was a study that they were doing where they were trying to teach piano, and they had a group that had to practice every day, and they had a group that just visualized every day, and the group that visualized still learned how to play the piano. And it was just showing the importance of visualization. Like you really can visualize and learn how to do something, and it's going to assist the outcome. Now it might not guarantee the outcome, but it's probably part of the process.
I totally agree. Love it.
Bone broth.
Love it.
For gut issues.
Yeah, I love bone broth. I think bone broth is one, whether you want to call it a fad or something that's really rose to fame, I love it. I love it. You do want to ensure that you are having a quality bone broth. So a lot of the packaged ones that you can buy, they might have like a lot of additives, preservatives, numbers in them. And this is where I will differ from a lot of other, like I call us foodies, people that work in the industry that I do, nutritionists, dietitian, naturopaths, is like the damage that a lot of those additives can do to your gut over time, like they all compound, is huge. So if you're going to go for a bone broth, just either make it yourself or get a really good one. Love bone broths. It's really high in anti-inflammatory aminos that are going to help with healing the gut lining. You're going to get in like a nice protein profile. They can taste good. I love them.
And the main reason for that is because we're getting extraction from like parts of food that we wouldn't normally consume. Like if we just in theory, right? If we just consumed the cartilage, right, would we still get the same benefits, or does it have to be?
Look, that's actually a really good question, Michael, that I probably don't know the exact answer to. But do you ever see anybody gnawing on a bit of cartilage?
I do. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
well, I'm South African, so for me, like over there, like you don't waste food.
No,
when we brought up, it's like if you ever see me eat a chicken wing, like that thing's gone.
Like that girl on Instagram?
Yeah. You ever see me eat ribs? There's nothing left on the ribs.
I love it. I love it.
And it's like, and then I watch some people here, I'm like, you've left half the food on the plate. But it's just interesting because like for me, it's mechanism. So it's like, okay, well, let's understand the mechanism. Like, is it because back in the day, like you think about like our ancestors, they probably did eat some of the cartilage. They probably did do those kind of things. Like,
totally.
They didn't really waste much, as where we do now.
Yeah.
And then that's one of those trade-offs, and now it's created a gap in the market where now bone broth is something that can help us fill that gap. Not saying people go and chew on bones all day, but
I think it's good. Like, we need to chew more to help with like our jaw development, our teeth, and that there like is connected with like breathing. Like, if you want to like bring that now into the gym, like imagine like somebody has got really great like jaw development and jaw movement and tongue movement, and then being able to have like nice open nostrils for breathing. Like, that's gonna like impact somebody's vitality, performance, recovery.
And easy to sell to the boys. Like, boys, improve your tongue movement.
Yes.
No, we had one of the clients in the class. She was talking about something to do with her jaw, and I was like, oh yeah, you probably just need to do some like jaw exercises. And then I was like, I would say you've got some atrophy around that, and it's causing some issues. Went and saw a specialist said exactly that. Yeah. And I was like, it's just common. We just eat soft foods now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and even like adults. Once we're fully developed, like our jaws are like more set. They are set. You can't. They're not malleable like a little toddler or a young kid. But like if our tongue posture and the strength of our tongue's not sitting up where it needs to, then you're more likely to mouth breathe. It's going to like bring the bottom part of your jaw in more. It's gonna, you might have anxiety, sleep problems. Like, there's so much, and a lot of it comes down to like, you picture us like
bad breath in the morning. That's for me.
Yes.
Like, because I mouth breathe, so in the morning it's like oof. Sort your breath out, but I'm gonna have to try and tape my mouth and learn how to nose breathe a bit.
Well, I bought Kristen the nose strips that open up your nose and the mouth tape. I don't think he's used the tape on the mouth yet, but he uses the nose strips, and he thinks they're pretty life changing. Yeah, they do this. They kind of.
I feel like it changes your voice.
Maybe. Maybe.
Test it out.
I reckon I sound better. I might just.
If my voice sounds deeper, let me know, because I'm sold. I'm buying it.
I haven't personally used them. I don't think I mouth breathe. I'm pretty good on like my exercises there. But Kristen says they're really good, and I've had a lot of other people say they're good.
Yeah, definitely something to look into.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, let's. Oh, there was another question I wanted to ask you before we move on. What was it? It slipped my mind. Before we move into it's plastics. So I don't know if you've seen all the new stuff coming out on plastics, but there's a lot of stuff that's actually very scary, so I wouldn't recommend anyone reading the research.
Yeah, wow.
But
like microplastics.
So drinking out of plastic bottles, things like that, and how much it's building up with the plaque. So it seems to be plaque in people's bodies. It seems to be acting as scaffolding.
Wow.
And allowing a little bit more plaque build-up. And that's all new research. Obviously, they're going to dive into a lot more. But in terms of comorbidities and causing a lot of health issues, it's something like 4 times. And this is only over a 4-month period. So they've tested people at like 0, and they've tested them 4 months later, and they're 4 times the amount. So it is very scary stuff, and that's unforeseen consequences, which is what we were talking about before. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So when we go and give out all these recommendations, you're fine to eat these artificial sweeteners, you're fine to do all these things. Anyone that's talking objectively like that, just take it with a grain of salt. We're not saying they're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, no one's saying don't do that. We're just saying we won't know until we know. We didn't know the long-term effects of shutting down the economy from COVID until we did it.
Yes.
Like, those are just things that you're never going to be able to predict. But don't be surprised if something does come up. Foresight's one of those things that if we all had it, life would be perfect. But we don't get to predict the future. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know how much you know on that topic.
I wouldn't say that that's my area of like deep research or anything, but like any plastics that I use, like everything's BPA free, and I don't use them for long periods of time. I don't even heat up my food in plastics. Everything's in glass. I use glass for everything, even like my meal prep containers. Like looking at that, like if I can take it to the front line of working with the clients that I have over the years, like I'm talking hundreds, thousands of women that have like the worst gut, the worst hormones, and all of them come from a background of like, reusing a Mount Franklin bottle or heating up in Chinese takeaway containers, but it doesn't just stop there.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, we all are.
I came home, my partner's like, yep, got your Yeti. I was like, it's like, sick of you drinking out of these plastic bottles.
Well, they're disgusting. But even then, like, we only have, like, quality containers at home, but every few months I'll chuck them out. Like, Kristen, he is a hoarder. Like, he's a professional hoarder. He'll be up me, like, why are you chucking out that single water bottle of Luna's? It's only a few months old. I'm like, have you seen inside it? Even though we scrub it clean, like, they harbour bacteria and mold and...
Deteriorate with the sun. You left anything out in the sun, it changes colour, right?
Yes.
Just, unfortunately, it's one of Newton's laws. Things will corrode and break down. You can't avoid it. including our body as we age.
Oh, totally. So, like, I mean, I can't sort of deliver too much more onto what you've said there, but I think that's definitely like research and things that people should take seriously, and not just stop there, but pay attention. Yeah, but even looking at like what you wash your body with, what kind of products you clean your home with, and I'm not saying you need to go full hippie, but just be mindful of that, and especially if you're very symptomatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
If things aren't the way you want them to be, and it's all based on the individual. What does the individual want their life to look like? I always joke when I'm like, oh, if I've lived a full life up to 50, I'm done. It's like,
well, I'm the opposite. I want to live over 100, but at 100, I still want to be like climbing mountains. And,
I don't care to live forever. I care to live. So like for me, it's like we were talking about it yesterday. We were having this conversation, a little bit off topic, but the guys were talking about like they're talking about like how life's too short, and I was like, compared to what? I was like it's all perspective. So it's like life is the longest thing you ever do. So that comment makes no sense. Like for you to say life is too short, compared to what? You don't know anything else that isn't longer. Like it is literally the longest thing you're ever gonna do.
It's how you live it, hey.
Yeah, and then yes, there's unforeseen circumstances where people pass away early, and it's fucking terrible. But if we average everything out, it's still the longest thing that anyone's ever gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's more about what you do, how you do it.
Yeah, how you live, the quality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everything we do here, everything we talk about with nutrition, everything we do with training, it's all about allowing people to live their best life. And the key word there is live. Not be stuck in a retirement home. Not be stuck behind social media, like computer, like it's being functional, being able to do things. My biggest thing is participation. People ask me why. Why do you train? Why do you do what you do? I have a fear of not being able to say yes. So if someone says to me, come jet skiing, oh no, I can't, I'll hurt myself. Or come out climbing, oh no, I can't tolerate that, it's too hot outside. Or I'm not fit enough, like, let's go do downhill bike riding. Like, I would be furious at myself if I had to say no because I physically could not do it. Like, that's my responsibility. I'm missing out on opportunities and memories, things that actually matter in life because I didn't do the one thing I needed to do. That's me personally, everyone's different.
Yeah, I think that's a really good topic and a really great way to look at life as well, because we can waste so many years like living in our funk, you know, and like you get to 30 and it's like, well, what have I done with myself? So like if you can just start being a yes person, like go out and live, like, you know, take it, please bosses don't like, you know, don't get angry at me, but take a day off work, go live your life, like say yes to going on that holiday, go on that date, you know, work with a coach to better yourself, like be a yes person. I think that's a really, really great thing you just shared.
Yeah, and there was an interesting one I heard the other day. It's just to do with business, and this guy was talking about like wanting more leave and stuff, and he goes, oh, the boss goes, what if I gave you 111 days a year off? And he's like, yeah, I fucking love that. It's like holidays and weekends. Like you literally are gonna have 111 days a year off. He's like, how about you just do more with it? I was like, holy shit. I was like, if you think about it like that, we have a lot of time that we're not at work. Yeah. So it definitely is, I think, like we talk about, just making the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That leads us into athlete nutrition. I think let's dive into a little bit more the performance side of things. Athlete nutrition is something that we see in our field trending a lot more. The big thing on this one is you've worked with a couple of athletes now, you're starting to work with more athletes, get a little bit more insight, a little bit more information. Can you discuss the importance of gut health in athletic performance and how it can be optimized? So it's a little bit different for these guys. These guys are doing a lot of the basics really well. One thing that makes them an athlete, extremely disciplined. Consistency is what they're good at. So this is where you get to tweak and optimize those little things.
Yeah, and they're athletes, especially like really devoted athletes, are great to work with. Because you're right, they are doing all of the basics. For the most part, all of the basics that they've been doing are usually delivered like on a bulk level. And what I mean by that, like on a blanket level, is it's like eat this much protein, eat your carbs around your training, like all of those things, which are great and they're really, really important, but that information can be quite skewed. And let's bring, circling this into the gut health. So an athlete will come to me and they're like, I'm eating really healthiness, but I'm like really, really bloated and or gassy or whatever. It's really affecting my performance. So okay, well let's look at what you're eating. They're eating bulk, like cruciferous vegetables, bulk nuts, seeds, legumes, which are deemed health foods, and I'm not saying they're not, but those foods can be very detrimental to the gut. Those foods are very abrasive. If you're overfeeding the gut bacteria by eating too much fiber or not having an optimized thyroid and gastric juices, food's going to move through a lot slower. So when I work with athletes, it is tweaking those little things. Because gut health, if you have gut problems, you have a metabolic problem. Hands down. Generally, it is a sluggish liver, underactive thyroid. And you would think that's pretty shocking. Like, an athlete should have a really optimized thyroid. But just because they're an athlete and they got a lot of muscle doesn't mean it's optimized.
But they're not necessarily causes the symptoms? Or
Do
they the
those?
cause? When you say underactive thyroid, would you argue that it's the cause, or would you argue that it's the symptom?
It is the cause. Yep, they're the cause. Well, the cause then, like if you backtrack even more, would be just from not optimizing your nutrition, living in a too stressed state, not prioritizing recovery, not prioritizing getting in enough of the nutrients that are going to optimize the thyroid, and then also, I was going to say one other thing, but now I forgot. It wasn't important.
You're talking about fiber.
Yeah, fiber's a really, really important one. It's a really big one, but also one that can be quite skewed. So fiber is important. We need fiber for moving the bulk of your stool through. But you also need fiber to remove endotoxins, to bind to excess hormones. Regulate your cholesterol. So fiber is really important. However, if you have gut problems, one of the first things you need to do is reduce your fiber. You don't want to do it long term. And this is where things like carnivore can get somebody instant results because you're removing out a lot of that fiber. Long-term carnivore's not going to be beneficial, and you'll generally see a lot of gut problems. So I'm trying to stay on track here.
This is what we were talking about before, where it's like it's not as simple as this works for everyone.
Yeah, totally. Everyone's very different because it's like you got your standards. Hit your protein, hit your carbs. Fat's even really important, but you don't want too much, but you want enough. Well, depending on the person. Like I've got athletes that can eat up to like 100 grams of fat a day and like 200-300 grams of carbs. Like, you know, it's probably more fat than the average person would probably eat.
And it's a very simple question, like it's a simple equation. You just ask people, I always do this now, I'm like, is everyone the same? If I asked you, do you think every human being is the same? No. And why do you think that it would be different? Why do you think that you can all follow the same diet? Like, this makes that's the hypocrisy in that statement there is just mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So I'm really big on like, yes, fibrous, chemically, hormonally, whatever, like amino acids, we all are the same, but by our biologies as an individual human, we are very different because we all have different emotional needs, we all have different traumas, we've all lived different lives, been exposed to different toxins, eaten different diets, done other stupid diets. Maybe half the population is used to shit their pants like me.
Yeah.
But, you know, like everybody's different.
Different inputs, different outputs.
Yeah, totally.
That's very interesting. There is a bit of a conversation around fiber where it's like, okay, we know that the recommendation is 35 grams per day. So it's like, but then if you track back 100 years, that's not what our ancestors used to consume. Our ancestors used to consume a lot more than that. So it's like, where did that recommendation come from? And is there more of a range that people should be thinking about rather than an objective number? And that ties into what you were saying, like it very much is based on inputs versus outputs, like what information is your body giving you? And you might be someone who needs to be below that range. Yeah. And then we increase you into maybe slightly above that range, but it's not going to be a fixed number forever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, forever. I think at the moment I calculated my fiber the other day and I think it was under 20 and I was like, well, hang on, like that's low. But I'm feeling great. I'm optimized. I'm awesome. Everything's fine. It's not something I want to stay on. It's just the food plan that I created for myself. It just happened to be a little bit less in fiber, and I'm totally okay with that. But if I do it for 6 months, am I going to be okay? I don't know. Like, you know, my body's going to need to get rid of waste. I'm going to need to keep making sure I'm going to the toilet every day. The key, like the fundamental, the root is always looking at stress. Always. And I'm not just talking about like a stressful job or whatever. I'm talking about stress, how your body handles stress. And that's where eating balanced meals throughout the day, prioritizing getting in bioavailable nutrients, sleep, sunshine, like all the basics are so important.
So we talk about stress and the stress response. We know that the body adapts.
Yeah.
So what is stress, does that always stay a stress, or again is that on a spectrum? Because if we look at, I'm just using, my brain just always runs. So
Love it.
for me it's like, okay, we look at ice baths. Now someone who is shit scared of an ice bath, doesn't want to get in, versus someone like me who's like, I'm just gonna jump in, I'm just gonna chill. Like, you'd think I'm a stone hippie half the time because I'm just always like relaxed. And it's like, they have a better response than I do because it's the stress response that's creating the adaptation and it's creating the positive response in this scenario. As well, because I'm calm, I'm just not getting the same stress response. Now, when I first started doing the ice baths, yes, because it was new and it was a shock. But as I start exposing myself to it more and more, that stress response becomes less and less. Is it the same for nutrition?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely that adaptation. Is it good? It really depends on the person. So like for you, the stress response is not so huge now with your ice baths, as long as you're fine, as long as you're not having symptoms, things aren't flaring up, like your sleep's not interrupted, your mental health or whatever, like it's a great adaptation.
And I had a break from them for a while because I was like, this is just becoming too easy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I need to desensitize myself to this. And it's like, and then I'll come and put it back in. And the reason I did that is I've done it with clients. Like, you talk about periodization, something that people don't talk about with programming, and you would have seen in bodybuilding. At some point, you cannot fit it in. You do not have enough time, you cannot do more sets, and you cannot do more weight without it being too much of a trade-off. Now, your joints are sore, now this is sore. I've had clients where I'm like, all right, we're not squatting for 2 months. What? It's like, nah, no squatting. It's like, we need to get you sensitive again. So it's like, you've progressed, let's say you're at 100%, all right, you've had a 100% increase, just make it easy for the listeners. All right, now you've come back 30%. But next time we run again and we can get another 70%, you still have a net, all right, of 40%. So you still had a 40% increase on where you were, but we had to let you come back down to get your body sensitized to it again so that you could have the adaptation response.
Yes.
And nutrition is very similar by the sounds of it we're talking about, where it's like, you are gonna need to adapt it the same way you would adapt your training.
Totally, absolutely. And you said like taking a break. Absolutely. Like if you're exposing your body to a particular stress and you're adapting and you feel fine and your gut's fine and like all your symptoms and everything's fine, that's great, but for how long? So it's always taking like a zoomed out approach and looking at it and going, is this sustainable? Is this manageable? Is this creating an outcome that feels pleasurable for me? And I'm talking like, there's some people that start doing intermittent fasting and all of a sudden 3 months later, like they're shitting their pants or they're bloated as fuck or they can't tolerate dairy anymore. Like there's all of these things you got to consider. So adaptation to stress is awesome, but how long do you want to keep exposing your body to that stress, and what's the trade-off? What's the outcome?
Exactly. There's a concept in business. You got a problem, you create a solution, the solution will create another problem creates a solution, problem. Very similar. Like, it is a solution, but it's only a solution for so long, and then that solution inherently will create another problem, and it's the cycle that we go through. So we need to be adaptable, and that's what I try to teach my clients, that obviously a little bit more with training, where it's like, you do need to be adaptable.
Totally.
So you're going to have sessions where you're not feeling great, adapt. You have sessions where you feel great, adapt. Like, that's where we're trying to get you. Where we don't want you to be this overly sensitive person that's very easy to derail because you didn't have your apple, right? Or the one that gets me every time is like the comment of, I had my coffee this morning, today's a shit day. Fuck off. I was like, if I hear that again, I'll bitch slap someone.
How good is coffee though?
I love my coffee, but it does not dictate my output and my effort for the day.
Totally, yes.
Like, and that's what I struggle with. I'm like, you can't. Now, every single thing, every task you do for the rest of the day, you're not going to do with full effort and full intent. Like, why? Because you've just given yourself an excuse because you didn't have your coffee.
I was about to say that right at the start of our conversation, you said like people are looking for that excuse, like looking for it. So I didn't have my coffee. I'm going to be a shit fuck today. It's like, no.
That's dumb. Like what could have been like 5 minutes of discomfort or something that you didn't like, and then you have the whole day to now have all these positive feedback loops. You've now ruined the rest of the day, and your whole day is negative feedback loops because of the way you chose to deal with that. That just sounds horrible to me. I don't ever want to operate like that.
Well, I look at people when they come to me saying, oh, I have an autoimmune condition, or I have this disease, or I have this. I'm like, that's just a label. You are not your label. You are a human that is self-healing and self-empowered, and you can make choices. Yes, you might have Hashimoto's thyroiditis right now, but you are not it. It is something that's going on right now. And it didn't used to happen. It wasn't like that. So what's caused it? So then you get to make those choices to reverse it. And I'm not saying that every single person can reverse their autoimmune condition, but I've worked with hundreds of clients that have. Yes. Yeah. Yes, you can at least try.
Yeah, if you try, at least you're stacking your deck. And
Yes.
you've got more chance of having change by trying than if you don't try.
Yes.
It's black and white, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
But they're some of the things that we have to battle in the industry as coaches.
You said something before, Michael, and it got me pondering over myself. Like you said something about like, you can't help everybody, and if someone says they've got a 100% success rate, then we know that's not true. And I literally was having this thought to myself. I was on the toilet. That's the greatest place for pondering, and I thought
Best place to tweet too.
the tweet. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I asked myself, how can I help every client? How can I ensure that every person that trusts in me, that invests in themselves through me, how can I ensure they walk away with value, with a better quality of life, or at least something? And the answer that I had was, don't ever stop working on yourself, Nyssa.
Yeah.
Don't ever stop working on yourself.
And
Don't
if you
ever.
get it wrong,
Yes.
admit that you got it wrong.
Yes, that's it. Just be open.
I've been in business now for, what's it been? 10 years. And this year was the first year that I realized I've been doing it wrong. For 10 years. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow.
This year will probably be one of the best years of your
Where
life.
it's like, oh, fuck, 10 years, 10 years. But I had to go through that, or like I wouldn't be there. And it's the same thing, like I have to have the humility to accept that, or it's never going to be able to move forward. And it's the same thing when I work with clients. Okay, I fucked up with this client. All right, how can I make sure I don't do it again?
Yeah. But there's always going to be one or two clients that you can't help, and maybe they're not ready. But you always try.
And don't blame them. Just as long as it's like, okay, I didn't help this person. Why? Then at least you're improving.
Yeah.
But if you're like, this person is someone that no one can help, again, it doesn't serve you.
No, that's right. Outsourcing your excuses.
We'll continue on the discussion of athletes. Obviously,
Yes.
we got a little bit distracted there, but that's okay. Hydration strategy. So something that came out recently by one of the ladies in the sector, and I don't want her to take offense if she does listen to this. If she does listen, thanks, appreciate the support. But she used a term where it was like 2% reduction in hydration is equal to a 10% reduction in performance. Now, to me, I was like, okay, this sounds like scare tactics. I would love to read the research on that, and I have heard this terminology a few times. I heard a little bit more like 1%. But if we talk about the overall picture and a net benefit, out of that whole conversation that she had, that was the only thing that people would have paid attention to. So they wouldn't have fixed their food or their sleep or like done these other, the other things that are going to stack their deck better. They've just focused on hydration. All their attention has been on that hydration. And again, was there a net benefit? Probably not.
I will start by saying this. You have to be very careful how you look at hydration. Not everybody. Now, athletes probably, but I'm just going to talk about like just everyday people here, okay? Not everybody needs 3 liters of water. Hydration is not just water. So a statement like that, I would say, she's probably smack bang on. Like if
she's not wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But if people read that and then go away and start drinking bulk amount of water or even just liquid in general, it most likely and possibly will have a detrimental effect to their actual hydration. So if you want to look at hydration, you touched on it before, like people need to look at like what are they eating? Are they in their water or their liquids, are they actually getting in electrolytes to hydrate their body on a cellular level? Because if you're just consuming, let's say 3 liters of water, you're probably going to piss out all of it and a whole heap of really important nutrients, and you'll come in. Oh, sorry, you go.
Sorry, we don't get the nutrients that we used to get from tap water.
No, and tap water's full of crap.
Yeah, like my dad's a civil engineer and he specialized in water, so it's like we always knew. It's like all the chlorophyll, all the chlorine and shit that they use. He would tell us. He's like, yep, kills everything. It's like everything in that water, any nutrients you would have got, probably not getting. Like, yeah, you maybe get a little bit of break off of like zinc and copper and whatever's in the pipe, but you're not getting the other stuff.
Totally, I 100% agree with him. Yeah. Water is really important, but what's more important is your mineral status and your electrolytes. So if you want to look at performance and athletes, if someone's saying to me, oh, am I hydrating enough? I'll be like, well, what does your day look like? What are you eating? When you do drink, what are you drinking? I have this magic drink. In my field, in pro-metabolic nutrition, it's called the adrenal cocktail, but I'm sure there's plenty of other names. But it has a decent amount of water, but it has your electrolytes in it, and it has like potassium, magnesium, sodium, all really, really important for hydration.
And where can you get that?
As in, where can I get this recipe, or where can you get
Is
those
there anything
particular...
that people want convenience? They'll be like, I don't want to make it, where can I buy it?
Well, you can start by ensuring that you're eating enough fruit. So fruit's full of a lot of minerals. Drinking quality juice, like getting in juice. This particular one, and I'll share the recipe with you to share on your show socials if you want, because I think it's something that if every single person who comes here, every single person who's watched this, if they just started having this when they train, it'll really make a huge difference. And it's literally coconut water, orange juice, and salt. You can add more to it if you want. I add magnesium and taurine, but coconut water, orange juice, and salt will cover minerals, cover sodium, potassium, and it really supports your adrenals. It really supports your cellular hydration, and then you're getting in a plethora of other enzymes and nutrients in it. And it's literally that simple.
And what you said there, just try it. Try it. If you feel better and you train better, then maybe it does work for you.
Yeah, I've had clients that are brand new. So I've over the years worked with a lot of greenies when it comes to resistance training. They've come from a very stressed state, but when we get them into the gym, they will actually start having a stress response. Nyssa, I can't sleep, or Nyssa, I'm just feeling really fatigued, like what's going on here? I'm like, we just need to ensure that we are supporting your adrenals, that we're getting you hydrated, properly hydrated. So I get them to incorporate an adrenal cocktail. Bam, fix it within one day.
Nice, I love it. Problem, solution.
Done.
The recovery side of things. So last one kind of for the athletes. Recovery is obviously key for adaptation. The training is only half of the equation. What are some nutrition strategies that can help muscle recovery, help with sleep? We spoke a little bit about magnesium and that in the adrenal cocktail. Hormone balance, post-competition. Obviously a lot of hormone regulation will happen during sleep, so sleep is a huge part of it. What do you normally recommend for athletes?
Absolutely, enough protein. And I'm not just talking that around your training, but just in general. So enough protein, enough simple and complex carbs, particularly around your training. So both simple and complex to replenish your muscle glycogen and your liver glycogen stores. That's really important for your recovery. Ensuring that you are, I'm not going to call it a bedtime snack, because some people eating too close to bed, it cannot be very beneficial, but eating something into the evening, and it doesn't need to be big, but eating something, and let's call it like a dessert or a dinner, bedtime, whatever, can help with reducing stress, okay? Because when we're asleep, sometime in the early hours of the morning, our glycogen stores start to be depleted, especially if you've got a well-optimized body. And if you are already in a stressed state, it's going to wake you up, and then you might struggle to fall back to sleep. So if we can ensure that you've got enough of your glycogen stores, it's going to help you stay in a nice restful sleep until the morning. Because during that period of time is where a lot of replenishment happens, a lot of detoxification happens, and growth. So ensuring that you're getting quality sleep. So if you're not getting quality sleep, maybe looking at a smallish bedtime snack that does contain some simple carbs and maybe some salt, or something like that to help with sleep. And then also nervous system regulation. Now I'm not talking you to sit there and like meditate or anything like that, but just ensure that you're not exposing yourself to any ongoing nervous system stimulation, especially post-comp, because like I haven't done any CrossFit comps, but I'm sure you've done lots. Like you give it your all. Like you give it your friggin' all. So your body's under, like adrenaline's pumping, cortisol's pumping, God knows what else is pumping.
In a heightened state.
You're in a
for a
heightened
prolonged
state.
period of time. Like the workout one for the CrossFit Open, perfect example. Like not that much volume. People who did 90 reps of each movement, they were fucked for like 7 days. I watched people and I was like, yeah, that's your nervous system. Your nervous system shattered. you were nervous coming in, all the stress, all these tip videos. Tyler already knows my stance on the tip videos. Fuck, influencers, just chill out. Like, it does my head in. I'm like, no one knows what to do. Everyone's overwhelmed. Like, you're increasing everyone's stress levels because it's so complicated. It's like
trying to strategize.
Yeah, that's what we were joking about. If you wanted to fuck up this workout and fall apart, what would you do? Do the opposite. It's not rocket science. But we just overcomplicate things sometimes. I'm guilty. I overcomplicate things all the time. But I have a natural desire to want more context and then make my own decision from there. Now, with that side of things and what we're talking about, the nervous system stress, the biggest part of that, is that just to do with sleep? No. So if someone, I sent you a message asking you because of that workout, like I saw it was very common that a lot of people had excessive nervous system fatigue, and it took them a while to recover from that. Your tips that you gave, do you want to share them with the audience?
Yeah, I can't remember all of them, but I'm sure if I just rattle off what I would say.
The main thing was a slight increase in calorie intake, was what I took away. Yeah,
definitely eat more, to help your body with like repairing the muscle, and then obviously replenishing your glycogen stores. So you definitely eat more and eat enough, and then regulating your nervous system. So just actually giving it some grace. Like, you just went hell for leather. Like, it was
some downtime.
To give it some downtime. I mean, like, if you may get to a point. So like, I mean, I'm only relatively new to coming and training in here, and I haven't done any comps. But I look at the way I used to train in the comps that I've done, and I don't get nervous. I don't overthink it, and I just have a crack. And even at 24.2 last week, I've never skipped in my freaking life. I was just like, let's have a crack, took a few tips from a couple of the girls, and I got through 3 rounds, or nearly completed 3 rounds. And I was like, cool, we had a crack. And my body wasn't stressed. I recovered really well. I probably didn't go like Denny or Brandon or anything like that. But
not yet.
Not yet, maybe. But I had a crack, but my nervous system wasn't in a too heightened state. Like, I went hard, but I didn't overdo myself because I was really well nourished, really well supported, but I was able to regulate my nervous system coming into that. I was open to going, okay, well, let's just have a crack. Like,
it's your mental state, you built it up to be what it was, and a lot of people built it up to be what it was for them. Like, they allowed themselves to be super nervous, super anxious, like whatever it might be, too many decisions, not making any decisions, having no plan, allowing their brain to go chaotic. And that's the thing, is like, your thoughts very much will become your reality, but the trick is you can actually control your thoughts.
You can.
Like, that's what meditation is. Meditation is reducing input so you can control your thoughts. Then how do you do it? Just do something that forces you to focus on something else. Like, just breathing. The amount of times, I really struggled because I was like, I can't meditate, I can't sit still. Everyone's like, you got ADHD. I'm like, fuck off, I don't have ADHD. I just like being active. I was like, I just feel like I'm not doing anything if I'm sitting still. And it's like, for me, it's trying to slow down. And to do that, I have to just do breath work.
Yeah, breath work.
So it doesn't matter where I am. As long as I just focus around my breathing, it will center me. Yeah. It'll make me present, and then I'm calm.
Anything, absolutely anything. It could be somebody could go outside and stare at a tree and the leaves blowing in the wind. Like, it can be absolutely anything. Like you said before, just something that just switches you off for a moment. Breath is incredible.
Yeah, it's what is the five senses?
It's like,
stop, think about what you can taste, what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell, and what you can feel, and you'll be present.
Yeah,
you won't think about anything else.
Yeah. I've only relatively recently new to it. I've started tapping, so EFT tapping, and it's been life changing for me. And but it's all it is literally, you've got these meridian points in your body and you tap them and just say how you're feeling. I'm feeling really fucking nervous right now. Like, whoa, like I am okay.
Kristen's pissing me off.
Well,
I'm late to the gym again because he's fucking vacuuming.
Yes, that's you. Kristen!
Yeah, he vacuums, boys. We gotta pick up again.
Yeah, we call him Jobby in our household because he loves doing jobs. I love you, babe.
That's funny.
Yes. So definitely to finalize that one is nervous system regulation. Like, just being like aware and okay with what you've done to your body. Give it some grace. Like, go get a magnesium float. Go lie in the bath. Just sit at home and watch Netflix for a few hours. Like, whatever it is for you, give yourself some grace.
Definitely. I think that's great advice. Now, kind of closing off, we won't be too much longer, maybe about 5 more minutes, but some takeaways for general population I think would be a good place to finish. For someone struggling with gut health and hormone issues, what are the first steps that you would take to improve this? So if a client's brand new, comes in, and you can kind of pick up on it. Obviously, you don't want to overwhelm them. It's not like here's 100 things that you need to tick off. What would be the first thing that you would?
So let's break them into two: hormones, gut. Okay, if someone comes to me, I would say firstly, what are your worst symptoms? Let's say it's gut and hormones. The first thing I would do for their gut is look at what they're eating or look at what they're not eating. And then I would just give them a very basic plan on things to stay away from. So if you've got gut problems, take away hard to digest foods. If you've got gut problems, eat easy to digest foods. I know it sounds, you probably think, what the fuck are they? It's very, very simple. And I can create an infographic that we can share for people to be able to see. Because once you start to understand, like cruciferous vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, they're really abrasive on the gut, and they can ferment into the gut and overfeed bacteria, causing a plethora of gut issues. So that would be where I would start with people with gut problems. And if we can, when we reduce their symptoms, we can start expanding their food database. So they might love freaking eating nuts. So we might be able to bring some back in eventually. That would be where I'd start there. Hormones, anytime you have a hormonal problem, you have an energy problem. You have energy production problem. So if someone comes to me and they've got hormonal problems, they're not eating enough.
Yeah, perfect. The supplements are a huge market. So we see it all the time. People are always pursuing, all right, what supplements do I need to add to my food? I know that your answer's probably gonna be like, don't supplement, fix your food first. They're not gonna listen, and you are gonna recommend a supplement. They want something on the go, add into their shake or their breakfast smoothie. What would you recommend?
I actually, when I saw this question, I thought to myself, like, I love supplements. I love them. I take crap loads. But as I said before, like when we talk about the adaptogens, is maximize everything first. For somebody, eating breakfast first thing in the morning, they might not be able to do. So a supplement could help. And I love that. So I try to think of 3 things that I would suggest. And I think a good quality protein powder would be a great supplement. Now, when I say good quality, I think protein powders have very much become...
It's hard to get now because everyone's using the same suppliers. I think of it as drop shipping. So drop shipping became a thing because everyone used the same supplier. And if you just think about business and how long it takes to build the infrastructure, build the supply chain, and actually manage quality control, it's like you're not paying $50 for a bag of protein.
No.
You're paying $150 for a bag of protein if you want that quality control.
Yes.
Unfortunately, people just want cheap shit. So it's pushed everyone to go and use the same suppliers.
Yeah.
And now it is very hard to find quality.
Quality one, yes. What to look for? You know, Kristen's really good at this. He searches like Woolies and Coles and sees if he can find half decent ones. And I'm always like, they're shit, babe. Whatever, I'm not touching that. But you want to look for ones with the most minimal ingredients. A lot of them will have like your sweeteners, your artificial sweeteners, numbers, preservatives. They are gut irritants. And so if somebody's got gut problems and hormonal problems, I would be like, stay away from those. And you'd be like, oh, it's only 1 or 2 numbers. But then where else in your day are you getting 1 or 2 numbers?
You're also eating macas, you're also eating the snakes.
Snakes, yes. See, for me, like, I mean, it can be a whole nother podcast. It's like, that's not food. If you look at the ingredients on that, that is not food.
Yeah.
So
it's a trade-off. Like, and that's the thing. Like, if you're filling your calories with these things, then you're also missing things. And it's like, your body's not where you want it to be. That's probably why.
Totally. I agree. Totally.
Like I said, it's still your choice. The other one there, so mindful eating is a term we hear often. Right? How does this play into gut health, and how would you define mindful eating?
Depends. I think mindful eating can look and feel different for everybody. I used to intuitively eat and it got me fat. I think data is really important. So if someone wants to mindfully eat, yet they're gaining weight, then like you have no idea what you're doing. You're just running blind. So I think mindful eating or intuitively eating can be beneficial if you know what you're doing. Like by the sounds of it, you mindfully eat for most of the time, and then you maybe track 1 day a month. Like, would you say you mindfully eat?
Yeah, I just try to make sure I'm not obsessive with it.
Yeah. Like I think if somebody has the know-how, it can be really beneficial.
I love food. Like literally, I train hard and I do what I do because I want to eat all the nice things. It's like I just make sure, like, but I'm very aware. Like a holiday's a holiday because you don't get to do it all the time. Like those foods are good for you. Like you enjoy them so much because you don't get them all the time. they become a regular, defeats the point. If my life's a holiday, it's not a holiday.
I kind of disagree with you there. Like, my life is a holiday and my food is a holiday and I friggin' love it.
But it's just, it becomes normal is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, so you've now, that's your normal. So like, you're not going to get the dopamine hit that you're chasing because it's something that you do all the time, and then your body desensitizes to it. So, and yeah, like you've obviously set it up in a way where you don't feel like you need to ever change anything.
No, I have ice cream
Like,
every night.
you can keep doing this forever.
Yes.
That's how you look at it.
Yes.
And that's what everyone wants to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My goal is to be able to eat maybe 1,000 more calories than what I'm on and have ice cream and brownies every day. And I literally do that now. Like, I literally do that now, and I love it. But I come from a pretty bad binge eating background. Like, I was binging Betty was pretty bad. Like, you think of pub crawls, I would do that, but going from like Macca's to Zaraffa's to the IGA and getting ice cream with honey-coated macadamias and apple pie, and I would make myself sick, and then I would get over it and I'd do it again. So I was pretty bad. That was my really big restricted days.
Yeah. So it's funny because people, when they look at me and my lifestyle, they'll be like, oh, you need to chill, you need to slow down, you work too much, you do this. I'm like, bitch, I get to eat 5,000 calories a day. I was like, I'm happy. Like,
that was going to be my
don't
question.
Get fat. Like, I was like, in your eyes, it's a bad thing. I love food. I can eat as much as I want.
Yeah. What are you, 5,000 calories? Oh, I would love that.
And that's the thing, like, and I struggle to put on weight. But then I'm not someone who has to try and track 10,000 steps. Like, my average is like 18 to 24 without even trying.
Yeah.
So it's like,
very active.
Those are things I just don't have to think about.
Yeah.
And that's just based on my lifestyle. There is one thing I wanted to touch on. There's a bit of a joke that I'll have at the end, but there is this big push to simplify things, which I think is great. Overall, it has a net positive. Calories in, calories out, huge. All right. Now, there is a scenario like we were talking about where this isn't necessarily going to be that simple, and not because that is factually correct. That is exactly what's going to help people lose weight. But again, if you're on 1,500 calories and it's calorie in versus calorie out, and you're only expending 1,500 calories because you're super sedentary, you need to eat 1,200 to have a negative so you lose weight. What's the trade-off?
Then there's many.
That's what I mean.
There's
it's not
many.
that simple.
Yeah, it's not. I saw something on social media the other day about like calories in versus calories out, and it's absolutely right, but it's right until it doesn't work anymore when you're looking at just calories. And if somebody's having to eat so low, like, they're missing out on so many micronutrients and bioavailable nutrients and essential nutrients that's going to affect them, and it's going to down-regulate things. And I always come back to the thyroid, because when the thyroid is not being optimized, everything is fucked. You are not optimizing your gastric juices, your food's not flowing through your GI tract quickly, you're going to open yourself up to things like SIBO and dysbiosis and sluggish liver, and it just goes on and on and on. So I think looking at it as calories in versus calories out is only part of the picture. And if, let's say someone's on 1,200 calories, like I've got clients that are really little and small that we've had to put on 1,200 calories because that's where her body's at. I just ensure that the quality
it's
of
a
the
45
food,
kilo individual.
very little, very little, no muscle. Definitely putting on muscle is one of her goals, but the quality of the macros and what's in those macros really matters
more.
It matters more.
And that's what we're talking about for those athletes. Those athletes are hitting the minimum requirements, so they can afford to do that.
Yeah.
And yes, we know that being obese is one of the biggest driving factors for health issues. So that's the first priority. Yes, eat less, get your body weight down, but understand that at some point you need to optimize your food a little bit more.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's not going to be like that forever. It's like, all right, now we need to tweak things and try and eat a little bit better.
Yeah.
Now, we are in a little bit of a era where you can be whatever you want. All right. So with that being the logic, can a protein be a fat if it wants to be a fat? Can a fat be a protein? Can it be whatever it wants to be? Why does a calorie have to be a calorie?
Well, I'm sure.
Why does the macro have to be does anyone ask the macro? Does the macro want to be a protein? Does it want to be a fat? Does it want to be a carb?
This is true. Well, I'm sure, like, you know, what was it called now? Like, inclusivity, and, you know, like, let the fat be a protein and vice versa if they want to.
Jokes aside, all right. Jokes aside, there is a bit of a movement where it's like your body doesn't know the difference between potato, all right, and fucking simple, like, let's just say like a Mars bar. Alright? Your body doesn't know the difference between eating the Macca's burger, the fat in the Macca's burger, and the fat that's on a nice piece of steak. Is this true? Or is this just something that people do to simplify things? For me, fat is a storage mechanism, which means it's a storage mechanism for what? What is it storing? Alright? Now, it's storing micronutrients, which means if your fat storage is coming from those sources that are lacking micronutrients, then when it is excreting those energy sources back into your system, it can't just make these nutrients up out of nowhere.
No. And fat's also a storage house for toxins as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that movement is probably a load of shit, but I've not researched it, and so I could be wrong. But I am very much like you. When we break it down, it's like, well, protein comes with amino acids and other nutrients, and a Macca's burger is going to have like 5,674 ingredients.